But the lady, who rode side saddle and wore a long fluttering dress of dazzling green, was lovelier still. "Good day, travellers," she cried out in a voice as sweet as the sweetest bird's song, trilling her R's delightfully. "Some of you are young pilgrims to walk this rough waste." "That may as be, ma'am," said Puddleglum very stiffly and on his guard. "We're looking for the ruined city of the giants," said Joel. "The ruined city?" said the lady. "That is a strange place to be seeking. What will you do if you find it?" "We've got to," began Joel, but Puddlegum interrupted. "Begging your pardon, ma'am, but we don't know or your friend. A silent chap, isn't he? And you don't know us, and we'd soon as not talk to strangers about our business if you don't mind. Should we have a little rain soon, do you think?" The lady laughed, the richest, most musical laugh you can imagine. "Well, children," she said, "you have a wise, solemn old guide with you. I think none of the worse of him for keeping his own counsel, but I'll be free with mine. I have often heard the name of the giantess Shitty Ruminous, but never met any who would tell me the way either. This road leads to the burgh castle of Herfang, where dwell the gentle giants. They are as mild, civil, prudent, and courteous as those of Ettinsmuir, are foolish, fierce, savage, and given to all beastliness. And in Harfang you may or may not hear tidings of the city ruinous, but certainly you shall find good lodging and merry hosts. It would be wise to winter there, or at least to tarry certain days for your ease and refreshment. There you shall have streaming baths, soft beds, and bright learths, and the roast and the baked and the sweet and the strong will be on table 4 times in a day." "I say," exclaimed Strap, "that is something I like. Think of sleeping in a bed again." "Yes, and having a hot bath," said Joel. "Do you think they'll ask us to stay? We don't know them, you see." "Only tell them," answered the lady, "that she of the green kirtle salutes them by you, and has sent them to the fair southern children for the autumn feast." "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you ever so much," said Joel and Scrub. "But have a care," said the lady, "on whatever day you reach Harfang, that you come not to the door too late, for they shut the gates a few hours after noon, and it is the custom of the castle that they open to none once they have drawn bolt, how hard ever so he knock." The children thanked her again with shining eyes, and the lady waved to them. The Marshwiggle took off his steeple hat and bowed very stiffly. Then the Silent Knight and the lady started walking their horses up the slope of the bridge with a clatter of hoofs. "Well," said Puddleglum, "I'd give a good deal to know where she's coming from and where she's going. Not the sort you expect to meet in the woods of Giantland, is she? Up to no good, I'll be bound." "Oh, rot," said Scrub. "I thought she was simply super. And think of hot meals and warm rooms. I do hope Harfang isn't a long way off." "Same here," said Jill. "And hadn't she a scrumptious dress? And the horse?" "All the same," said Puddlegum, "I wish we knew a bit more about her." "I was going to ask her all about herself," said Jill. "But how could I when you wouldn't tell her anything about us?" "Yes," said Scrub. "And why were you so stiff and unpleasant? Didn't you like them?" "Them?" said the Wiggle. "Who's them? I only saw one." "Didn't you see the knight?" asked Jill. "I saw a suit of armour," said the Puddlegum. "Why didn't he speak?" "I expect he was shy," said Jill. "Or perhaps he just wants to look at her and listen to her lovely voice. I'm sure I would if I was him." "I was wondering," remarked Puddlegum, "that you'd really see if you lifted up the visor of that helmet and looked inside." "Hang it all," said Scrub. "Think of the shape of the armour. What could be inside it except the man?" "How about a skeleton?" asked the Marshwiggle with ghastly cheerfulness. "Or perhaps," he had as an afterthought, "nothing at all. I mean nothing you could see. Someone invisible." "Really, Puddlegum," said Jill with a shudder, "you do have the most horrible ideas. How do you think of them all?" "Oh, bother his ideas," said Scrub. "He's always expecting the worst, and he's always wrong. Let's think about those gentle giants and get on to Harfang as quickly as we can. I wish I knew how far it is." And now they nearly had the first of those quarrels which Puddlegum had foretold. Not that Jill and Scrub hadn't been sparring and snapping at each other a good deal before, but this wasn't the first really serious disagreement. Puddlegum didn't want them to go to Hoffing at all. He said that he didn't know what a giant's idea of gentle might be, and that anyway Aslan Science had nothing about staying with giants, gentle or otherwise. The children, on the other hand, who were sick of wind and rain, and skinny fowl roasted over campfires, and hard cold earth to sleep on, were absolutely dead set to visit the gentle giants. In the end, Puddlegum agreed to do so, but only on one condition. The others must give an absolute promise that, unless he gave them leave, they would not tell the gentle giants that they came from Narnia, or that they were looking for Prince William. And they gave him his promise, and went on. After that talk with the lady, things got worse in two different ways. In the first place, the country was much harder. The road led through endless narrow valleys, down which a cruel north wind was always blowing in their faces. There was nothing that could be used for firewood, and there was no nice little hollows to camp in, as there had been in the moor. And the ground was all stony and made your feet sore by day, every bit of sore by night. In the second place, whatever the lady had intended by telling them about Halfang, the actual effect on the children was a bad one. They could think about nothing but the beds and baths and hot meals and how lovely it would be to get indoors. They never talked about Aslan or even about the lost prince now. And Jill gave up her habit of repeating the signs over to herself every night and morning. She said to herself at first that she was too tired, but soon she forgot all about it. And though you might have expected that the idea of having a good time at Halfang would have made them more cheerful, it really made them more sorry for themselves and more grumpy and snappy with each other and with Puddlegum. At last they came one afternoon to a place in the gorge where the travelling widened out and the dark fir woods rose on either side. They looked ahead and saw that they had come through the mountains. Before them lay a desolate rocky plain. Beyond it, further mountains capped with snow. But between them and those further mountains rose a low hill with an irregular flattish top. "Look, look!" cried Jill, and pointed across the plain. And there, through the gathering dusk, from beyond the flat hill, everyone saw lights. Lights, not moonlight nor fires, but a homely cheering row of lighted windows. If you have ever been in the wild wilderness day and night for weeks, you'll hardly understand how they felt. "Halfang!" cried Scrub and Jill in glad, excited voices. And "Halfang!" repeated Puddlegum in a dull, gloomy voice. Bodhi added, "Hullo, wild geese!" and had the bow off his shoulder in a second. He brought down a good fat goose. It was far too late to think of reaching Halfang that day, but they had a hot meal and a fire and started the night warmer than they had been for over a week. After the fire had gone out, the night grew bitterly cold, and when they woke the next morning, the blankets were stiff with frost. "Never mind," said Jill, stamping her feet. "Hot baths tonight."